My beloved friend, Rabbi Art Levin, used to say, you congregational rabbis, he was a lawyer, and he had a rabbinical ordination, and he was very happy being a member of a congregation, but not a congregational rabbi. But he would make fun of us and say, well, you congregational rabbis, you don't have such a difficult job. You are actually supposed to preach twice a year. And to be honest, the tradition is that you actually, or an old tradition that we don't remember any longer, was that there were two Divrei Torah, substantial Divrei Torah sermons that rabbis would share with their congregations, and one of them was in Shabbat Teshuvah, which is the Shabbat between and Yom Kippur, and the other one was in Shabbat HaGadol, the great Shabbat, the Shabbat before Passover. And it is customary for the rabbi to share a very long Dvar Torah, and because of that, you see, I don't have notes. We'll talk about this. No, and I shared that long Dvar Torah last Friday. I did not believe in you, like Elijah the prophet that didn't have faith in the people. You know why we bring Elijah to the Seder? Do you know why we bring Elijah to the circumcisions? Or why we bring Elijah every single time that we have celebrated Shabbat and we say Havdalah? Because he said, you Jews, you are not going to continue with the traditions. And so we invite him every single time to let him know that we are keeping up, that we are moving forward and carrying on with the tradition. Now, Shabbat HaGadol, this great Shabbat, is an opportunity, or one of the things that we try to do is to prepare for Passover. The name of the game in Passover is preparation. It's all connected to what happens before in order to make it to that week in which we are going to be changing our behaviors. My parents, for example, I grew up we used to go to shul, but my home was pretty secular. My parents did not keep kosher, neither did I when growing up. But we ate matzah in Passover. Like, there was no question that we would eat matzah. All of a sudden, they became kosher for Passover. Now, we ate non-kosher things with matzah, but no bread or anything that we knew had chametz. And there were all kind of things that, in retrospect, I know now that they probably had chametz and we didn't know. But I know better now. But anyway, the intention was that we did not eat anything with chametz because Passover has this very powerful invitation that we characterize as cultural, but it's the mother of religiosity. It's the mother of being religious in our behavior. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, Passover is the most celebrated Jewish holiday. It's not Hanukkah. Well, Hanukkah is celebrated by Jews and non-Jews, and it's just a good idea, right? So Passover is the most celebrated holiday. And I want to argue that the reason Passover is the most celebrated holiday is because it is at the essence of our people. It is the ethos of who we are. our story, the story of the Jews, is the story of this motion, this transition from oppression to redemption. It's also our work in the world. And oppression is not something that was only experienced by fellow Jews in Egypt. As a matter of fact, oppression is something that was present in Jewish history many, many times. And I want to share something very specific with you about the Seder, and hopefully invite you to reflect on this idea, as tomorrow, hopefully all of you will be celebrating Passover and doing your own Passover dinners, Sedarim. You know the song, right? Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Magid. Maron, keep going. Okay. I wanted to stop in number 10, but you can go to 15. Thank you, Shiri. Thank you. So we have this dinner with 15 steps, and each one of them carries very special meaning. And the question is, where is this dinner coming from? That's not how we celebrated the Exodus since the moment that we left Egypt, right? That didn't happen that way. It's not that the Jews left Egypt with a bunch of matzah and agadot, like the book for Passover, and they were in a rush, and so they only do the half seder or the 15-minute seder. That didn't work that way. That wasn't the story. So the celebration of Passover was the Paschal sacrifice. And sure, the idea of this dinner, this meal that everybody is invited to share in the sacrifice, this is a very special sacrifice, is the one that somehow will dictate or will inspire the Seder later on. But the Seder wasn't a part of the practice. This is one of the pilgrimage holidays, one of the 3 regalim pilgrimage holidays, and people were supposed to go to the city of Jerusalem to celebrate it. So it was in the move, actually. So how it happened to us that all of a sudden we are sitting around the table, mesubim, reclined in a table, and reading this book and telling stories? Well, the temple was destroyed. We lost our home. The Seder is born in a time of absolute crisis. The rabbis have no idea what their world is going to be like. And then they're trying to come up with a path forward. The Seder and the Agadah is one of the most beautiful examples of the creativity of rabbinical Judaism and of the finding of a path forward. Now, if you want to find the Agadah, if you go and open the Mishnah, the written version of the oral tradition, you will find the foundations of the Agadah there. They are not in the Torah. Sure, the Mishnah is quoting from the Torah, but the rabbis are trying to figure it out. And as a matter of fact, you will see that there are a few portions in the Agadah, in the traditional Agadah, that somehow show you snapshots of the story of how they were kind of discussing and how they were trying to figure out what this thing was going to be. As a side note, the rabbis that are discussing that they are the 5 of them. They end up being killed by the Romans. So the idea of imminent danger, the idea of oppression, wasn't strange to them. It was a part of their lives. So I said that I wanted to share one thing. This was all to introduce that. Number 10, Shiri. What comes before the set table, Shulchan Orech? Korech. What is the korech? Korech sounds like karich, which in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, is sandwich. And the sandwich has 3 elements. It was the tradition of Hillel, the elder, Hillel HaSaken, to make a sandwich with 3 things. Matzah, maror, and... Okay, let's talk a little bit about the meaning of that sandwich. And with that, hopefully we'll find some idea to think about our own time, our country, our world, the things that we are dealing with in our lives. The first one is maror. Maror means bitterness. Bitterness is sometimes, or very often, or too often, a reality of life, a reality of our world. We don't always get to choose. Sometimes it just happens. It is just part of our lives. The second one is charoset. Now, what is the thing that the charoset symbolizes? What? Correct. And by means of doing that, like the hard work. It wasn't the work that they chose to do. They were slaves. You know, we like to say that we built the pyramids, right? But the charoset, as opposed to the maror, is sweet. Now, being a slave, or being oppressed, or being attacked, or being discriminated, is maror, 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 maror. But being alive cannot only be maror. So there is a reminder then that within the difficulties, between the hardship that we didn't choose, we can't think about how we are going to bring things together. We can't think about seeking for sweetness, even though we are seeing bitterness all around. The work of seeking for sweetness is not an easy one, but to live our lives immersed in bitterness, that's awful. And the last element is matzah. Matzah, on one hand, it is such a fragile thing. It breaks apart so easily. But original matzah is more like bread. Have you made matzah ever? So it's more like a pita. Like when you actually make matzah, it doesn't break apart so easily, but still, it's very thin and breaks apart. But the matzah represents not only the living in a hurry, in a rush, represents the idea that you are living, that you are moving from a place to another with a sense of purpose. And therefore, waiting for bread is not such a big deal. It doesn't really matter because you have your eyes into the promised land. Because you know that you can make certain compromises for the sake of the journey. So let's bring them together because at the end we are talking about a sandwich. Bitterness is not necessarily our choice, but it's part of life. And sometimes there's way too much bitterness. And it's difficult to find the space for other things. Finding sweetness and bringing things together is hard work. And within the work or the space in which we are that might be very bitter is what can make this journey bearable. The ability to find light, sweetness, joy, even in difficult moments in life, is what ultimately makes a difference. But the journey cannot happen, cannot take place if we cannot visualize a promised land. If we can't project ourselves in a journey. Because if we don't have that matzah, then the perspective of life is only to mix maror with some haroset. The moment that the matzah becomes a part of the sandwich, a part of the equation, we know that there is maror, that there is the possibility of finding sweetness and bringing sweetness and somehow balancing the experience, but that we have the ability to project ourselves, that we have perspective, and that there is a promised land, and that the motion from oppression to redemption, from oppression to liberation and freedom is possible. So I want to invite you to think in your own lives, in your own sedarim, what's bringing you bitterness? What's the bitterness that is filling your throat? How do you find some sweetness? And most importantly, how you release yourself from that space. How you don't stay in that space by means of finding your matzah. What's going to set you in motion, because it's going to be enough in order for you to move from that place of bitterness into the projection and the perspective of a promised land. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.